Broadcasting from Moria, Middle-earth, this is the Secret Fire Podcast, sent to burn at the heart of the world, episode number 37. I'm Michael.
And I'm Micah.
On this episode, we'll answer the age-old question, do Balrogs have wings? We'll take a closer look into the Secret Fire and learn how Gandalf and Durin's Bane are really brothers. And we invite you to come along, join the fellowship, become a servant of the Secret Fire right here at the GCT Network.
This is your Great Commission transmission.
Welcome back to the studio, my fine little friend.
Thank you.
My little friend. Ooh. Micah, where are we?
Not in the studio.
No.
We're in Moria.
We just got transported.
Khazad-dum.
Khazad-dum. In Lotro, where specifically are we?
Well, it's a district known as Nudmelik,
Uh-huh.
which is,
So we're
I guess
near
it would be southern part of Moria.
getting towards that last walk towards the first hall?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so okay, that's all we'll say right now. Because there's that, all players know exactly where you are right now, as a matter of fact. Well, longtime players, people that are up that high in level in the game. Oh, goodness, it's been a few weeks here, a bunch of things going on, and also we're still waiting for Brendan to get back into the studio with us, and that's not going to happen until September, and he has all kinds of wonderful things that have been taking place to him after the tragic loss of his father. So he lost his dad, but now he's getting all sorts of prayers answered, and we're excited for him, and we're excited to be able to talk about that more when he gets back to the studio. In the meantime, Micah, are you let's go ahead and get a back up and get a running start. We have a lot of things to talk about in this episode, so here we go. We're just going to back up a little bit from where we left off last time. Let's see here. I have never felt so spent, says Gandalf, but it is passing. And now, what about you, Frodo? There was no time to say so, but I have never been more delighted in my life than when you spoke. I feared that it was a brave but dead hobbit that Aragorn was carrying. What about me? Says Frodo. I'm alive and whole, I think. I am bruised and in pain, but it's not too bad. Well, said Aragorn, I can only say that hobbits are made of a stuff so tough that I have never met the like of it. Had I known, I would have spoken softer in the inn at Bree. I think he gave him a wink of the eye when he said that, huh? That spear thrust would have skewered a wild boar. Well, it did not skewer me, I'm glad to say, said Frodo. Though I feel as if I had been caught between a hammer and an anvil. Advil. He probably needs some Advil.
Yep.
Yes, he said no more. He found breathing painful. You take after Bilbo, said Gandalf. There is more about you than meets the eye, as I said of him long ago. Frodo wondered if that remark meant more than it said. That's good stuff. What do you think? Are you ready to start the adventure?
I sure am.
Remember what Bilbo used to say? It's a dangerous business, Frodo.
Going out your door, you step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to.
Well, you may be swept off to just outside the chamber of Mazarbul after the most dramatic scene so far in this book. They now went on again. Before long, Gimli spoke. He had keen eyes in the dark. I think, he said, that there is a light ahead, but it is not daylight. It is red. What can it be? Gosh, muttered Gandalf. I wonder if that is what they meant. That the lower levels are on fire? Still, we can only go on. Soon the light became unmistakable. Give the viewers their view of the book. And soon the light became unmistakable and could be seen by all. It was flickering and glowing on the walls away down the passage before them. They could now see their way. In front, the road sloped down swiftly, and some way ahead there stood a low archway. Through it, the growing light came. The air became very hot. When they came to the ark, Gandalf... Whoops, don't turn the page yet. Gandalf went through, signing to them to wait. As he stood just beyond the opening, they saw his face lit by a red glow. Quickly, he stepped back. "There is some devilry here," he said. "Devised for our welcome, no doubt, but I now know where we are. We have reached the first deep, the level immediately below the gates. This is the second hall of Old Moria, and the gates are near, away beyond the eastern end, on the left, not more than a quarter of a mile. Across the bridge, up a broad stair, along a wide road, through the first hall, and out. But come and look." They peered out. Before them was another cavernous hall. It was loftier and far longer than the one in which they had slept. They were near its eastern end. Westward, it ran away into darkness. Down the center stalked a double line of towering pillars. They were carved like boles of mighty trees whose boughs upheld the roof with a branching tracery of stone. Their stems were smooth and black, but a red glow was darkly mirrored in their sides. Right across the floor, close to the feet of two huge pillars, a great fissure had opened. Out of it, a fierce red light came, and now and again flames licked at the brink and curled about the bases of the columns. Wisps of dark smoke wavered in the hot air. Are you seeing anything like that?
Minus the fire, yes, the trees are here.
What do you think of the depiction in Lord of the Rings Online?
I think it's excellent. They look like from a distance like natural trees, but when you get close, you see that they're carved out of stone, and it's just absolutely amazing.
Beautiful. "If we had come by the main road down from the upper halls, we should have been trapped here," said Gandalf. "Let us hope that the fire now lies between us and pursuit. Come, there is no time to lose." Even as he spoke, they heard again the pursuing drumbeat. Doom, doom, doom. Away beyond the shadows at the western end of the hall, there came cries and horn calls. Doom, doom. The pillars seemed to tremble, and the flames to quiver. "Now for the last race," said Gandalf. "If the sun is shining outside, we may still escape. After me!" He turned left and sped across the smooth floor of the hall. The distance was greater than it had looked. As they ran, they heard the beat and echo of many hurrying feet behind them. A shrill yell went up. They had been seen. There was a ring and a clash of steel. An arrow whistled over Frodo's head. Boromir laughed. "Ha! They did not expect this," he said. "The fire has cut them off. We are on the wrong side." "Look ahead," called Gandalf. "The bridge is near. It is dangerous and narrow." Suddenly, Frodo saw before him a black chasm. At the end of the hall, the floor vanished and fell to an unknown depth. The outer door could only be reached by a slender bridge of stone without curb or rail. Now, Micah, we have noticed over the years that there's one thing that is seriously lacking in Middle-earth. What is that?
Rails on bridges.
Handrails!
Yes. It's mainly just a Peter Jackson thing, I believe.
Well, and also a Dwarves of Khazad-dum thing.
And Elven thing.
Yes. Peter Jackson does not like handrails being in the way of the shots. So he says, no, wait a second, I can't see their feet now, and it's taken away from their beautiful clothing that we spent a lot of money on.
There really is something epic about, crossing such a chasm without any,
But like in the Hobbit films, when they first get to Rivendell, and we didn't see it in 3D, and so I imagine that effect was extremely creepy. But I was creeped out enough as it was in 2D when they're looking over the side of that bridge that has no handrails. Middle Earth needs more. Maybe we should get a like a Kickstarter campaign going or a GoFundMe?
I think it's too late for that.
All right. Now I lost. Now I lost my way here. Here we go. The floor vanished and fell to an unknown depth. The outer door could only be reached by a slender bridge of stone without curb or rail that spanned the chasm with one curving spring of 50 feet. It was an ancient defense of the dwarves against an enemy that might capture the first hall and the outer passages. They could only pass across it in single file. At the brink, Gandalf halted, and the others came up in a pack behind. "Lead the way, Gimli," he said. "Pippin and Merry next, straight on and up the stair beyond the door." Arrows fell among them. One struck Frodo and sprung back. Another pierced Gandalf's hat and stuck there like a black feather. Frodo looking behind. Beyond the fire, Frodo looking? Frodo looked behind. Beyond the fire, he saw swarming black figures. There seemed to be hundreds of orcs. They brandished spears and scimitars which shone red as blood in the firelight. Doom, doom, rolled the drum beats, growing louder and louder. Doom, doom. Legolas turned and set an arrow to the string, though it was a long shot for his small bow. He drew, but his hand fell and the arrow slipped to the ground. He gave a cry of dismay and fear. Two great trolls appeared. They bore great slabs of stone and flung them down to serve as gangways over the fire. But it was not the trolls that had filled the elf with terror. The ranks of the orcs had opened, and they crowded away, as if they themselves were afraid. Something was coming up behind them. What it was could not be seen. It was like a great shadow, in the middle of which was a dark form, of man shape maybe, yet greater, and a power and terror seemed to be in it and to go before it. It came to the edge of the fire, and the light faded as if a cloud had bent over it. Then with a rush it leaped across the fissure. The flames roared up to greet it, and wreathed about it, and a black smoke swirled in the air. Its streaming mane kindled and blazed behind it. In its right hand was a blade like a stabbing tongue of fire. In its left it held a whip of many thongs. "Aye! Aye!" wailed Legolas. "A Balrog! A Balrog has come!" Gimli stared with wide eyes. "Durin's bane!" he cried, and letting his axe fall, he covered his face. What? The terror. Abject terror on these two. These two know exactly what they're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
The hobbits don't. Boromir doesn't. I'm sure Aragorn does as well. He's seen it all.
Yeah.
"A Balrog," muttered Gandalf. "Now I understand." He faltered and leaned heavily on his staff. What an evil fortune. And I am already weary. The dark figure, streamed with fire, raced towards them. The orcs yelled and poured over the stone gangways. Then Boromir raised his horn and blew. Loud the challenge rang and bellowed like the shout of many throats under the cavernous roof. For a moment the orcs quailed and the fiery shadow halted.
That's pretty impressive that a make of mortals can halt this. Well, we don't know what it is yet, but
I would love to know more about that horn. Do you think we'll learn anything more about that horn?
oh, I'm sure we will.
Oh, okay. Because that's a powerful effect right there. Huh. I like just I like pausing and just letting it sink in as we're reading along, letting the sounds of the game. You know, another reminder, listeners, you really ought to listen to the Secret Fire podcast through headphones or earbuds or something. It'd be nice, nice and immersive.
That's a weird effect.
That's just panning. Okay. Then the echoes died as suddenly as a flame blown out by a dark wind, and the enemy advanced again. "Over the bridge!" cried Gandalf, recalling his strength. "Fly! This is a foe beyond any of you! I must hold the narrow way! Fly!" Aragorn and Boromir did not heed the command, but still held their ground side by side, behind Gandalf at the far end of the bridge. The others halted just within the doorway and at the hall's end and turned, unable to leave their leader to face the enemy alone. This fellowship has coalesced. You know, these adventures since leaving Rivendell, and that perilous fight on Caradhras, and then coming down and meeting that pack of wargs, and then making their way to the walls of Moria and the thing, the Watcher in the water, and then making their way through the dark of Moria and ending up in the chamber of Mazarbul. And all of these things has coalesced. They are a fellowship. Mm-hmm. We can't leave them to face this alone. Everybody is terrified. Even the bad guys are terrified.
And it speaks great volumes about Boromir because, he's never seen this before. He doesn't know what it is, but he's going to stand there and defend Gandalf. And he stands alongside Aragorn, which, we have to commend Aragorn as well, but he's on a whole nother level.
Yes.
Boromir
is an honorable man.
And he's a man. He's immortal, but he's still going to fight.
Yeah, but he does have a taste left of that blood of the Númenóreans in him. Mm-hmm. And more importantly, he has the spirit of the Númenóreans in him. Huh. Wow. Okay, the Balrog reached the bridge. Gandalf stood in the middle of the span, leaning on the staff in his left hand, but in his other hand, Glamdring gleamed. Glamdring. I wanted to stop and talk about Glamdring this episode, but we do not have time to do that. But this sword, you have to remember, folks, this sword is over 6,000 years old. Its birthplace is Gondolin. Mm-hmm. Wow. And I can't wait till we get into that as well. So much stuff. This show's going to go on until I croak. It really is. His enemy halted again, facing him, and the shadow about it reached out like two vast wings. Micah, do Balrogs have wings?
Well, we don't know, but...
Should we just leave it at that and go on?
Well, do you have an answer?
It raised the whip, and the thongs whined and cracked. Fire came from its nostrils, but Gandalf stood firm. "You shall not pass!" he said. The orcs stood still, and a dead silence fell. The effect of Gandalf's command. The orcs, okay, shall not pass. Okay, I'll just stay right here, "I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Arnor. You cannot pass! The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun. Go back to the shadow. You cannot pass!" Servant of the secret fire. That is the namesake of this show.
I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Arnor.
And in our introductory episode, episode 0, which we didn't outline. We had no show notes. We just got behind microphones and just talked about what our plans were for this show, where the name came from, and what the purpose of the Secret Fire podcast is. And it all comes from this scene right here. So we're going to stop for just a moment and get into some deeper things. You cannot pass, he said. I am a servant of the secret fire. The secret fire is also known as the flame imperishable. And we took the name from the Silmarillion, and I can't ever pronounce any of these things, so the Valaquenta, okay? The account of the Valar and Maiar according to the lore of the Eldar. And there's the quote in there is, therefore Iluvatar gave to their vision being and set it amid the void, and the secret fire was sent to burn at the heart of the world, and it was called Ea. We also mentioned that in the book Tolkien and the Silmarillion, writer Clyde S. Kilby refers to a discussion he had with Tolkien. He says, quote, Professor Tolkien talked to me at some length about the use of the word holy in the Silmarillion. Very specifically, he told me that the secret fire sent to burn at the heart of the world...
I am a servant of the secret fire.
In the beginning... Let me read that again, because I goofed that up. Very specifically, he told me that the secret fire sent to burn at the heart of the world in the beginning was the Holy Spirit. You can find that on page 59 of his book, Tolkien and the Silmarillion. But as I said, it's also known as the flame imperishable. And so, Micah, we are going to spend a little bit of time here in the Silmarillion. Because but we're going to go back to the first part, the music of the Ainur.
All right.
I don't know how to say that.
Ainur.
No. Ainur and delay.
Sure.
Yeah,
whatever you want to call
it.
Yeah,
that's what I say, and I'll probably get corrected on that, and that's perfectly A-okay, because I don't know what I'm doing. There was Eru, the One, who in Arda is called Iluvatar. And he made first the Ainur, the holy ones, that were the offspring of his thought. And they were with him before aught else was made, and he spoke to them, propounding to them themes of music. And they sang before him, and he was glad. But for a long while they sang only each alone, or but a few together, while the rest hearkened. For each comprehended only that part of the mind of Iluvatar from which he came. And in the understanding of their brethren they grew but slowly. Yet ever, as they listened, they came to deeper understanding, and increased in unison and harmony. And it came to pass that Iluvatar called together all the Ainur and declared to them a mighty theme, unfolding to them things greater and more wonderful than he had yet revealed, and the glory of its beginning and the splendor of its end amazed the Ainur, so that they bowed before Iluvatar and were silent. Then Iluvatar said to them,
Of the theme that I have declared to you, I will now that ye make in harmony together a great music. And since I have kindled you with the flame imperishable, ye shall show forth your powers in adorning this theme, each with his own thoughts and devices, if ye will. But I will sit and hearken, and be glad that through you great beauty has been wakened into song.
Mr. Martin Shaw, ladies and gentlemen, reading the Silmarillion. What do you think? I mean, I think he's a perfect voice for the Silmarillion.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Of the theme that I have declared to you, I will now that ye make in harmony together a great music. And since I have kindled you with the flame imperishable, ye shall show forth your powers. Remember that. since I have kindled you, not kindled in you, but I have kindled you with the flame imperishable. Moving on, then the voices of the Ainur, like unto harps and lutes and pipes and trumpets and viols and organs, and like unto countless choirs singing with words, began to fashion the theme of Iluvatar to great music. And a sound arose of endless, interchanging melodies woven in harmony that passed beyond the hearing into the depths and into the heights, and the places of the dwelling of Iluvatar were filled to overflowing, and the music and the echo of the music went out into the void, and it was not void. Never since have the Ainur made any music like to this music. Though it has been said that a greater still shall be made before Iluvatar by the choirs of the Ainur and the children of Iluvatar after the end of days. Beautiful stuff. Mm-hmm. Martin, take it away.
Then the themes of Iluvatar shall be played aright and take being in the moment of their utterance. For all shall then understand fully his intent in their part, and each shall know the comprehension of each, and Iluvatar shall give to their thoughts the secret fire, being well pleased.
The secret fire, right there. And Iluvatar shall give to their thoughts the secret fire, being well pleased. They are creating into the void this grand image that Iluvatar is giving them, each in their part, because each one of the Ainur knows the part of Iluvatar that he gave them, so they have that in common, but they don't know what this guy over here knows, or that guy over there knows. But there is one of the Ainur that has it all, that knows, that has every part that they got in him, and that's Melkor. And so they begin singing. Some of these thoughts he now wove into his music, and straightway discord arose about him, and many that sang nigh him grew despondent, and their thought was disturbed, and their music faltered. But some began to attune their music to his rather than the thought which they had at first. And this is one of those reminds me of those psychological, it actually reminds me of Bugs Bunny cartoons or whatever, where he goes,
the yes, no, yes,
yeah,
no, yes,
yes.
no, yes, what?
So these other Ainur, dare I say, they're more, I don't want to use the word simple, but if I use the word ignorant, people will take that wrong. They're more ignorant than Melkor, because they only know a part. Ignorant is not stupid. It's just a lack of knowledge. He has it all. So they're just singing their part, but he's singing this other song, and then they just get caught up. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like being taken out to sea by the.
As a theater person, I know when you're learning a song and you're having, like, doing a duet, I suppose, and you have to remember your own chords or notes, but then you have the person
your part
who's also a strong singer,
your harmony parts, yes, and you can get caught up with them if you aren't paying attention, and that really is what's going on. Then the discord of Melkor spread ever wider and wider, and the melodies which had been heard before foundered in a sea of turbulent sound. But Iluvatar sat and hearkened until it seemed that about his throne there was a raging storm as of dark waters that made war upon one another in an endless wrath that would not be assuaged. And so this is the scene. And then Iluvatar will stand and will get things back on track. And then here comes Melkor, and Melkor is going to start doing his thing again, and he even describes his song as not even music, not like a melody. It was just like more of a droning of many trumpets or whatever, just playing a few notes. And so it really is that droning sound. And Melkor has something on his mind.
To Melkor, among the Ainur, had been given the greatest gifts of power and knowledge, and he had a share in all the gifts of his brethren. He had gone often alone into the void places, seeking the imperishable flame. For desire grew hot within him, to bring into being things of his own. And it seemed to him that Iluvatar took no thought for the void, and he was impatient of its emptiness. Yet he found not the fire, for it is with Iluvatar.
He goes into the void to find this fire. I'll seize it for myself. But he couldn't find it, because it only resides within Iluvatar, and he gives it as he wills. This is just utterly fantastic. And so here we have, and I said all that to say this, we're talking about the secret fire. That is what Gandalf says, I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Ainur. Well, what in the world is that? Well, there's a lot of information here, and we could go ahead and go right to one of my old standbys, is The Complete Guide to Middle-earth by Robert Foster. This one is your book, Micah. This is the only one that's yours. That's my Silmarillion.
No.
This is my Silmarillion.
You have 5 Silmarillions on your shelf. I don't know why you need mine.
I have 5. All right, and so I did some makeshift. I did some makeshift bookmarks here, but let's see if I could get to it. See, this isn't working, Micah.
What are we looking for, Ainur?
Yeah, the flame. Well, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing.
Okay,
it's the same thing. In fact, the flame imperishable, the flame of Ainur, the secret fire, they are all synonymous. And so when Gandalf says, I'm the servant of the secret fire, the keeper of the yielder of the flame of Ainur, it's that power, it's that creative power. And then he calls the Balrog, or he says, flame of Udun. Udun, what is that? Well, going back to my favorite book here, and somehow my bookmarks got goofed up again. Here we go. The source of the dark flame of the Balrogs, possibly Utumno, possibly the darkness of the spirit of Melkor. Well, what's this Utumno? Well, lo and behold, I have a bookmark for that as well.
He's so prepared.
I am, which is a word in Quenya, meaning not valley or something like that. The first dwelling of Melkor in Arda. A great underground fortress built in the northern Middle-earth during the spring of Arda. Melkor gathered his Balrogs in Utumno, and he may have bred orcs and the great spiders here. We'll leave it at that for right now. So, I am this. Well, what? Why do I keep trying to quote him?
I am the servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Ainur.
Your dark fire will not avail you. Flame of Udun. So, moving on though. Now we have discussed the Ainur, the 14 most powerful Ainur, not including Melkor. The 14 most powerful are the ones who said, we love that so much, what you created through us, through this song, into the void, that we want to be a part of it. And we not only want to be a part of it, but we will be a part of it. We will remain a part of it until all things are made new again. The rebuilding of Ea. Really, right? Well, so now what are those 14 Ainur called?
Maiar?
Nope. Close.
Yeah, no, what?
Valar.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were, because I had you prepare for something, you were getting excited.
Is it my chance?
Okay. The Maiar. The Maiar, well, according to Robert Foster's Complete Guide to Middle-earth on page 318. Maiar is a Quenya word, and the Quenya is one of the languages spoken by the elves. They are those of the lesser Ainur who chose to enter Ea. They're not the big, powerful 14. Well, plus Melkor, because Melkor went in there too, but he's a bad guy, so we don't care about him. These Maiar were Ainur, technically. Technically, any Ainur that is not counted as Vala is Maya. Okay, so yes, they're with the Valar, but they are not Valar. They aren't one of the 14, so they are Maiar. Does that make sense?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Oh, okay, good. So again, the Valar were the 14 greatest Ainur, minus Melkor, who entered Ea. Sauron and the Balrogs were corrupted Maiar. Do you have anything that you want to add to the Maiar?
No, you covered it.
Okay, here's another thing. So Sauron and the Balrogs are Maiar. The Astari, the Wizards, Saruman, Gandalf, Radagast, the Blue Wizards were Maiar, who entered Middle-earth in Third Age 1000. The Maiar are also known as, quote, the people of the Valar. See, each of the Maiar was associated with one or more particular Vala. That's singular. For example, Saruman of many colors, belonged to, we spoke of him a couple episodes ago, he belonged to Aule, the smith, the guy who got so impatient that he went ahead and created dwarves without, with no permission. Okay. Gandalf is Maiar. The Balrog is Maiar. Balrog is a Sindarin word meaning power, terror, or demon of might. They were Maiar who rebelled with Melkor after Sauron rebelled. He was the first. He's the greatest. He is the most powerful of the Maiar. They're also known, well, not known as, they became, when they were corrupted by Melkor, these Maiar became spirits of fire. The leader was a little fuzzy flame by the name of Gothmog. Gothmog. Most of the Balrogs were destroyed in the Great Battle, also known as the War of Wrath. That was the final conflict against Morgoth at the end of the First Age, circa 545 to 587. That was the greatest war ever fought in all of Middle-earth. And the survivors, the Balrogs who were not destroyed, they hid deep underground until dwarves of Khazad-dum happened upon one as they were delving too greedily. And that was Third Age 1980. 980 years after Gandalf came to Middle-earth. Isn't that something?
Sure is.
That's a lot of information. So, that's why I said that Gandalf and this Balrog are brothers. But let's get back to the Secret Fire. I'm a servant of the Secret Fire. We know that Tolkien was specific. It is the Holy Spirit. There's the Holy Spirit right there. Gandalf, as we've been talking about all along, fulfills most likely the prophet role in the prophet, priest, and king motif found throughout the scriptures. And his words remind me of the words of Jesus in Luke chapter 4, verses 17 through 19. This is when Jesus first, he comes out of the wilderness, his his fasting in the wilderness and his temptation there. And he comes into a town, and he, as his custom, he enters into the synagogue and sits down, and they hand him the scroll that is to be read that day. And he picks it up, and the book of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him, and he opened the book and found the place where it was written, quote, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free those who are oppressed, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. The Holy Spirit of the Lord is upon me. I am a servant of the secret fire." Basically, he's quoting out of Isaiah 61, and I want to read some of this, Mike, and I want you to pay attention and see if this reminds you at all of this story of Gandalf so far. So we'll continue where he left off in freedom to the prisoners, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to grant to those who mourn in Zion, giving them a garland instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the mantle of praise instead of a spirit of fainting. So they will be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified. Then they will rebuild the ancient ruins. They will raise up the former devastations, and they will repair the ruined cities. I'm thinking of a very specific scene that this is alluding to in The Lord of the Rings. Scouring of the Shire. Somebody say it. Say it.
Scouring of the Shire.
Yeah! Strangers will stand and pasture your flocks, and foreigners will be your farmers and your vine dressers, but you will be called the priests of the Lord. That's hearkening back to Exodus chapter 19. You will be spoken of as ministers of our God. You will eat the wealth of nations, and their riches. In their riches you will boast. I'll stop right there. But if you continue on through Isaiah 61 and just see if you can see Gandalf in this passage and what he is doing. I mean, what's he doing as a prophet? What do prophets do? They speak the oracles of God. They encourage. We've been talking about this the whole time we've been doing the Secret Fire podcast and pointing out what Gandalf does. It's very rare that he gets up and grows in stature and slays things, right? He is there. The job of the Astari were not to fight the battles. Their job were to inspire the others. But he's got a lot of power in him, and he's able to do wonderful things. And he is a servant of the secret fire. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him in Isaiah chapter 11, verse 2. The Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and strength, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. That is Gandalf. We could turn to Psalm 40, starting in verse 6, actually, but we're not going to, because I think that'll fit maybe a little bit better later on in the story. Those are your Christian themes this episode, when we know, I mean, what a great, it's in the movie, it's in the film, it was preserved in the film.
I am a servant of the secret fire.
I am a servant of the Holy Spirit comes out of Gandalf's mouth, and it won like a bazillion Academy Awards, and everybody in the whole wide world has seen it. That's a fantastic witness, and also a testament to the power of Tolkien's writings. Absolutely. Any questions, comments, piggybacks, editorials, off-the-wall remarks?
Nay.
No? Are you sure?
Positive.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
They did. They did. Should we continue on? Here we go. The Balrog made no answer. The fire in it seemed to die, but the darkness grew. It stepped forward slowly onto the bridge, and suddenly it drew itself up to a great height. Oh, Gandalf's able to do that too. And its wings were spread from wall to wall. Micah, do Balrogs have wings?
Sure.
Would it be okay if somebody said no?
Yeah.
Would it be okay if somebody said yes and agreed with you?
Yep.
Is there any answer to this question?
Well, it says as if it had wings.
Yeah, but then it says it...
So you're of the opinion it has wings. That's fine.
Well, would you like to hear some arguments?
Sure.
Okay, arguments for Balrog wings. The most common reference for winged Balrogs is vast wings, the vast wings language at the Bridge of Khazad-dum. So the plain language here explicitly refers to, quote, wings. Another Tolkien reference may be taken as evidence of Balrog wings. So this is out of Morgoth's Ring. Swiftly they arose, and they passed with winged speed over Hithlum, and they came to Lamath as a tempest of fire. Okay, well, I don't know. That's not convincing to me. That is an argument. It's not like a great argument, but it is definitely an argument. We've got to give it to them. This is either a metaphor, and I'm reading from TolkienGateway.net, as a matter of fact. This is either a metaphor for moving very quickly. In fact, I can go ahead and pull this up for you folks so that you can see it. This is either a metaphor for moving very quickly or a literal reference to physical wings. It is this issue over the verb to fly, which is mostly at the heart of the Balrog debate. Another oft-quoted example from the appendices, quote, they roused from sleep a thing of terror that, flying from Thangorodrim, had lain hidden in the foundations of the earth since the coming of the hosts of the west.
Well, that doesn't convince me at all, because flying,
right,
we must fly.
You fools.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So that's not a good... Those arguments aren't good.
No.
Okay.
The word flying has many meanings, and does not mean soaring
like a bird. Right? Okay. Arguments against. On the other hand, the explicit reference to wings of shadow leaves open the interpretation that Balrogs had no physical wings. Balrogs were never exactly described as flying in any of Tolkien's works, including the winged speed language quoted above. Furthermore, at least 2 Balrogs fell to their ruin, apparently wingless. Right? So here's one, now the Quintus Silmarillion. Many are the songs that have been sung of the duel of Glorfindel with the Balrog upon a pinnacle of rock in that high place, and both fell to ruin in the abyss. That's out of chapter 23 of Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin. Great stuff. Next one is, I threw down my enemy, and he fell from the high place and broke the mountainside where he smote it in his ruin. We know who said that. Gandalf. That's in the Two Towers. Oh, that was a spoiler alert. I should have had an alarm going off. Some think the strongest objection is the simplest, that taking references like the second statement seriously means that all lines must be taken literally. For example, shortly before the Balrog's appearance, Gandalf came flying down the steps and fell to the ground in the midst of the company.
Against all of these, to defend both sides, most of them seem to refer to the fact that they fall.
Yeah.
But if you were wounded and you fell to the ground, the fact that you have legs is not going to... Well, how did he fall? He had legs.
Yeah.
Why isn't he standing up?
That is good. That's powerful deduction.
I mean,
right there.
I don't know. I've never given it much thought. It doesn't. I like to read things, and that's a cool description. I've never think. Does it have wings or not?
Yep.
I don't.
Well, here's the thing. Really, did the Balrog in the Peter Jackson films really have wings? I mean, was he not a shadow and flame, just like a Balrog is?
I mean, it had physical wings, but...
Were they really physical wings, though? Or were they just as what's written in here, And its wings were spread from wall to wall. That says its wings. Okay? Now, yes, earlier it says, like 2 vast wings. But then just this 2 paragraphs later, it says its wings.
I think what everyone visualizes when they think of a Balrog as a demon, and classically, a demon would be a black creature with, gargoyle wings and
Yeah.
You know, a little spiky tail and stuff. And yeah, that's a fine way to imagine it. And if that's the way that you imagine it, that's fine.
Well, then let's table that discussion and get to the end of this chapter, shall we? The Balrog made no answer. The fire in it seemed to die, but the darkness grew. It stepped forward slowly onto the bridge, and suddenly it drew itself up to a great height, and its wings were spread from wall to wall. I think they have wings. But still, Gandalf could be seen, glimmering in the gloom. He seemed small and altogether alone, gray and bent, like a wizened tree before the onset of a storm. From out of the shadow, a red sword leapt flaming. Glamdring glittered white in answer. There was a ringing clash and a stab of white fire. The Balrog fell back, and its sword flew up in molten fragments. The wizard swayed on the bridge, stepped back a pace, and then again stood still. "You cannot pass," he said. With a bound, the Balrog leaped full upon the bridge. Its whip whirled and hissed. "He cannot stand alone," cried Aragorn suddenly, and ran back along the bridge. "Elendil! Elendil!" he shouted. "I am with you, Gandalf!" "Gondor!" cried Boromir, and leaped after him. At that moment, Gandalf lifted his staff, and crying aloud, he smote the bridge before him. The staff broke asunder and fell from his hand. A blinding sheet of white flame sprang up. The bridge cracked. Right at the Balrog's feet it broke, and the stone upon which it stood crashed into the gulf, while the rest remained, poised, quivering like a tongue of rock thrust out into emptiness. With a terrible cry, the Balrog fell forward, and its shadow plunged down and vanished. But even as it fell, it swung its whip, and the thongs lashed and curled about the wizard's knees, dragging him to the brink. He staggered and fell, grasped vainly at the stone, and slid into the abyss. "Fly, you fools!" he cried, and was gone. The fires went out, and blank darkness fell. The company stood rooted with horror, staring into the pit. Even as Aragorn and Boromir came flying back, the rest of the bridge cracked and fell. With a cry, Aragorn roused them. "Come! I will lead you now," he called. "We must obey his last command. Follow me!" They stumbled wildly up the great stairs beyond the door, Aragorn leading, Boromir at the rear. At the top was a wide, echoing passage. Along this they fled. Frodo heard Sam at his side weeping, and then he found that he himself was weeping as he ran. Doom! 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 The drum beats rolled behind. Mournful now, and slow. Doom! They ran on. The light grew before them. Great shafts pierced the roof. They ran swifter. They passed into a hall, bright with daylight from its high windows in the east. They fled across it. Through its huge broken doors they passed, and suddenly before them the great gates opened. An arch of blazing light. There was a guard of orcs crouching in the shadows behind the great doorposts, towering on either side, but the gates were shattered and cast down. Aragorn smote to the ground the captain that stood in his path, and the rest fled in terror of his wrath. The company swept past them and took no heed of them. Out of the gates they ran and sprang down the huge and age-worn steps, the threshold of Moria. Thus at last they came beyond hope, under the sky, and felt the wind on their faces. They did not halt until they were out of bowshot from the walls. Dimrildel lay about them. The shadow of the misty mountains lay upon it, but eastwards there was a golden light on the land. It was but 1 hour after noon. The sun was shining. The clouds were white and high. They looked back. Dark yawned the archway of the gates under the mountain shadow. Faint and far beneath the earth rolled the slow drum beats. Doom. A thin, black smoke trailed out. Nothing else was to be seen. The dale all around was empty. Doom. Grief at last wholly overcame them, and they wept long. Some standing and silent, some cast upon the ground. Doom. Doom. The drum beats faded. Well,
You need say no more. We'd best get a move on. There are still goblins about.
Oh, bother. More mountains?
No, don't you see? The sun is setting in the west, behind the mountains. We're on the other side, to the edge of the land beyond.
what do you think, Micah? Any last thoughts on the Bridge of Khazad-dum?
No, I think we ought to leave it at that.
Really? You don't like Ainur? Thought you liked this chapter. Man. Good stuff. All right, listeners, which part of this chapter stood out to you? And why? What do you really get out of this when you're mining it for all it's worth as you're sitting there and reading? You know, share it with us. Share it with the other listeners. We want to know. And we'll give you all the ways to let us know here in just a few minutes. But first of all,
What on earth are these?
Replies to the party invitations.
Good gracious.
oh, good gracious, we did get a solitary reply to the party invitations, and
Wow.
we're just we're tickled pink that Chris Tomlinson, who I don't believe we have ever heard from before, contacted us via our contact form on the website. You can get to the website at secretfirepodcast.com. He says, love what you guys are doing. Just downloaded Lotro and hoping to catch you guys live today.
Awesome.
That was yesterday. He says, it's been awesome watching you guys do quite literally an expositional study on this. I'm not only a pastor by trade, but also a film professor at 2 universities, both in critical studies and actual film production. Christianity and film is one of the classes I teach, so you guys speak my love language. Keep it up, guys. Can't wait to hear more. Signed, Pastor Chris Tomlinson. And brother, welcome to the fellowship. Right?
And welcome to Lotro.
And yes.
I'm eager to hear what you think of the representations.
Well, he is on our server, on the Arkenstone server, and so we'll
Awesome.
have to look him up. He did send me also his name there. I don't know if it's okay to share that, so that's why I didn't do that this time. But you're our kind of people, Pastor Chris. I mean, everything that you wrote in there, you got Lord of the Rings Online, film, Christianity, brother. Man, we've been waiting for you. As a matter of fact, or I'll look in the camera here. We've been waiting for you. See, but microphone, that's no good. Hi. All right. Nothing else? Micah, do you have any party tree items? Anything going on in your life? Getting ready to start college?
Start tomorrow, yeah.
Tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it was tomorrow. Where have I been?
I don't know.
You know, I live in this
never
house
know where
too.
you are.
I'm always right here in the studio. Wow. Nothing else?
Nope,
Nothing
that's all.
exciting? Okay. Well, I have a new video series coming soon. And all I'm going to do is, for people watching on the video, if you're listening to the podcast, audio only, you don't get to hear that. You don't get to see
Uh-oh.
this, you get to hear it. Of course, you can watch this on YouTube, which is a big hint. Okay. We all have this book. Or did I say book? We all have this thing. We know what it is. And just stay tuned, friends, for a new video series coming along. So you'll want to be subscribed to the Secret Fire Podcast YouTube channel. because I'm not going to make blog posts for this and things like that. It's going to just live on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. So again, go to YouTube, search for the Secret Fire Podcast, and subscribe. Click the little bell thing on there so that you get notifications. And I don't know how soon the first one will come out. I'll get cracking on it this week. And that's about it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I can't think. I didn't put it in the notes or anything, so I don't know. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Well, then before we get going, we should send out more party invitations, Micah. The Secret Fire Podcast is live in the GCT Network studio whenever we are actually live in the GCT Network studio. But we'll send out notifications when we're broadcasting on our Twitch page at twitch.tv/secretfirepodcast.
And you can join us on the Arkenstone server in Lord of the Rings Online at lotro.com. And you can support the GCT Network and the Secret Fire Podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/GCTN.
You have a different thing than I do.
What do you mean?
I don't know why I'm not seeing this. Okay. You can send us email to thesecretfire@gctnetwork.com. You can also call our Hobbit hotline at 507-407-GCTN. Leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on an upcoming episode and share your thoughts with all the listeners out there, everyone in the fellowship. But if that phone number doesn't work, you can call our backup hotline in Crick Hollow. Fatty Bulger is standing by.
Yes.
Hello?
Hi, Fatty. This is Michael from the Secret Fire Podcast, and I'd like to... Micah's not enjoying my...
I don't think that's Fatty. I say this a lot, but it does not sound like Fatty.
It is Fatty.
Am I number 10?
No, you're not number 10. We're not taking calls. Go away. Okay. Anyhow...
Oh, brother.
That's for my radio show. Yeah. And what did I just read? Micah, help me out. You can subscribe to the Secret Fire Podcast in all your favorite podcast apps. Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, or whatever you use. Just search them all for the Secret Fire Podcast. Our theme song, Hobbit's Dance, is from the album Memories of Middle-earth by Brobdingnagian Bards. You can find out more about them and buy all the music on their website at thebards.net. You know, to find out more about the Secret Fire Podcast, as well as our other shows, including Finding Christ in Cinema and the Theonauts, visit our main website at gctnetwork.com. If you like the Secret Fire Podcast, please share it with your friends, bring people to the fellowship, and also leave a review in the iTunes store. But if you love the Secret Fire Podcast, please consider becoming a patron and a sustaining member of the fellowship on our Patreon page at patreon.com/GCTN. All the Lembas bread that we can get is going to be needed here real soon in this adventure to sustain us here. Well, until next time.
I regret to announce this is the end. I'm going now. I bid you all a very fond farewell.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. All right.
You're a strange little guy. Who is that strange? Oh, you're an odd little
Who
fellow.
is that odd little fellow?
That's my son. Right, son? Yes, dear old dad. Hug you, donkey, and dog you, daddy.